I just got this comment from Raining Sideways, and I realize that every time we've talked about this, it's been buried, so today we're going to talk about it.
The break angle. Yes. Wow. Finally. Wish I knew this a decade ago.
Hello, I'm the Bun. Welcome to the channel. Hope you are well. This is Baritone Obsessed. This is a show all about guitars that are a whole bunch longer for going a whole bunch lower. Today we are talking about the baritone break angle. Sounds crazy, sounds cryptic. Strangely, this is never talked about. I discovered this on my own, and then through discovering it, realized that it was a huge problem for many other people. There are definitely characteristics involved in it that are kind of specific to heavy strings and low tension and these sorts of things. So we're gonna get into that. Before I figured it out, it was like this phantom kind of thing. I just couldn't figure it out. It didn't make sense. The more I tried to fix it, the worse it got. I've mentioned this in a few videos. I've covered this in a few videos, but always kind of buried in a bunch of other stuff. So today we're gonna dig into it, but those other videos will be linked down below if you wanna follow up with them. Break angle deserves its own episode because some people have shipped their guitars back not understanding what's going on. They've bought new guitars, they've run into this, then they ship the guitar back and they're like, the guitar was bunk. Nothing wrong with the guitar. It's gonna take 1 minute for two different things today, which is huge thanks to everybody with us over at Patreon and YouTube memberships. They are the people who produced this episode and many others. If you'd like to get involved in producing future episodes and future music, you can do so in the links down in the description. Number two is a whole new lot of Bun apparel, which includes this here t-shirt, you know, shoes, yes, shoes, I can't believe it, Bun has a shoe line. And these amazing bags. The prints are crazy, and there's a big story to the prints, and we're gonna talk about it at the end of the episode, so stay tuned for that. I personally became very familiar with break angle problems back in 2009 when I got the Mashock and I started working on the Foreign's Metropolitan material. There were not a ton of options back then. There was the Gretsch and the Dano. I was a little too ignorant to pay attention to those guitars at that time. Not sure why. I was just like humbucker. But I had just got the 27.75 inch scale PRS Mashock to go down to G1 standard. I had the 13 to 72 strings on it from Ernie Ball. And what I didn't realize is that heavier strings come with other problems. While the tension of these strings at this tuning and scale might be comparable in tension to, say, a 25.5 in E2 with 11s, this heavy of a string will need more tension to sort of flatten out. I had no idea that this was going to be the source of such a mysterious problem. I just couldn't get it to intonate. It was really weird. When I would move the bridge saddle back, it would go sharper. So if it's flat, you move the saddle forward. If it's sharp, you move the saddle back. Commonly with baritones, when you're setting up to go lower and lower and you're using heavier strings, usually it goes sharp at the 12th. So you move the saddle back. Well, I was moving the saddle back and it was getting sharper. I'm just like, what is happening? My initial thought was maybe the strings were too light, and I ordered a set of 80 gauge strings, and of course, everything got even worse still. Quickly began to realize that heavier strings introduce a bunch of other problems with intonation, sustain, and tone. But yeah, today we're just going to be focusing on break angle. Break angle describes the manner by which the strings are held by both the nut and the bridge, the anchor points. The nut and the bridge are anchor points. For a clean or appropriate break angle, the strings will terminate at the very end of both the nut and the bridge saddle. So at the very edge of the bridge saddle and at the very edge of the nut, unless they are cut otherwise or designed otherwise, compensated and whatnot. But let's say this is a traditional nut. All my guitars besides the Viper have traditional nut and traditional bridges. A problematic break angle is when the strings do not terminate at the terminal edges of the anchors. So the bridge and the nut, like if it doesn't terminate at the edges as designed, it introduces major tuning problems. And typically what is happening is that the string is arcing over the anchors. Let's jump to a different angle and we're gonna try and demonstrate this. This here guitar is the Ibanez RGI B21. It is strung with 14 to 68 strings from Kurt Mangan. I just put the strings on. And what is break angle? So if we look here at the bridge saddle and we look at the string coming over it, the string has this sort of round hump on the top. And what that tells us is that the string is not coming off the very edge of the bridge saddle. This is not very extreme because this string is pretty light for this setup. G standard on a 28-inch scale guitar with 14 to 68 strings. Things are pretty in equilibrium, but still the problem occurs. The string is arcing, the string is arching, the string is curving over the top of the bridge saddle. And this is most dominant on the lowest string because the lowest string is the stiffest. And this is a thing that is going to introduce serious tuning problems if tuning matters to you. So if you play up the neck and you grab wide intervals off of the low string and you play those intervals for more than a split second, meaning you're not playing in a staccato means, if you're holding notes and all the notes in the chord need to be in tune up the neck past the 12th, let's say, this is going to introduce a problem. This is going to introduce an intonation problem. So let's take a look at it on the tuner. So right now the string is to pitch. This is G1. So if we fret it at the 12th fret, what do we get? Majorly sharp. And it's majorly sharp mostly because of this arc. But let's take a look at how much the sharpness reduces just by pressing it down. So all you got to do is press a string down. You can see it right away. So now the string is coming straight off of the saddle. And I tend to really kind of ram it down. And I do it for all the wound strings. I'll do a screen cap of both and put them side by side so you can see them side by side. Now we got to retune the open string to pitch. So the string is now to pitch. Now let's check the 12th again. Oh wow, it's almost right on. It's a huge difference. I'm not even going to bother adjusting the intonation on that. So this whole thing is going to be much less of a problem in setups where the scale gauge and tuning are more in equilibrium. I have a page on my site that sort of indexes optimum setups for certain tunings. A good rule of thumb is more prone to this problem are shorter scale lengths that are running heavier strings. These setups usually require much more adjustment travel. You gotta pull it back further, which is another kind of problem in itself. Not gonna go there today. Another interesting note to cap it all off is that those of you who enjoy really abnormally light strings will probably enjoy better intonation. It's just like a thing. Lighter strings tend to intonate better. You have other problems with super light strings, like it's all slack and rubber bandy and clacking on the fretboard, and it sharps when you pick, and you know, it bends when you fret. Thanks again to everybody with me over at Patreon and YouTube memberships. They are the people who produced this episode and many others. Huge thanks to them. If you'd like to get involved in other ways, you could do it through music, merch, and creative assets. Getting back around to the new apparel line, that would be the all-over print tees, bags, and shoes. Totally crazy. The designs behind it all are years of strings. Literally, I saved up a bunch of years of strings. These are all the bass side strings and bass strings. The smaller strings, the plain strings, don't seem to photograph very well. Not a surprise. In the Year of Strings design, we have this here crazy t-shirt and this here crazy bag. The coiled cable worship design, that is these cables right here. It's probably no secret that I just love coiled vintage style cables. I photographed the cables and I made a slip-on shoe line out of it, as well as another t-shirt. Similar to this one, just coiled cable worship. The shoes are made by Bucket Feet through Threadless. They are a service that allows people like me to connect with other people like you through art and apparel. I've been using this here bag quite a bit to go back and forth between the studio and home because I've been working on a lot of music lately and working on music at home. I've been using this bag to bring the HELIX, headphones, cables, little laptop pouch in it as well. Links to all this crazy new stuff are down below in the description. Super huge thanks to all the folks who have already got into it. I'd love to know if you were aware of this, if you have ever had similar experiences, if this episode solves all your problems. Let me know down in the comments. Otherwise, that's it for this one. Hope you loved it and hope to see you in the next one.